A man abandons his old mother in a deserted barn, promising to visit her soon, but he only returns a year later and is shaken to find a magnificent mansion in its stead. What happened to his mom in this 1 year was something he could have never imagined. Evelyn usually woke up early, but that day, Ryan felt worried when he saw his mom still asleep in the guest room. He wasn't sure if he was making the right choice, but he felt like he didn't want his elderly mother around anymore. Is she awake? Did you tell her she's moving out today? I don't think she can stay with us anymore, Ryan's wife, Amanda, asked, giving him a comforting pat on the shoulder. Before 60-year-old Evelyn could understand what was happening or wake up to the morning light, her bedroom door opened, and she heard Ryan's heavy footsteps coming toward her. Mom, wake up! Did you pack your things? It's time to go now, he said, sounding impatient to get her out. I'm ready to go, son. I wasn't sleeping. I was just taking a moment to think before leaving this house for good, Evelyn replied, her voice filled with sadness. This was not the morning Evelyn had hoped for, and her son's words felt like a heavy blow. She knew this day would come, but it arrived sooner than she expected, and it hurt her deeply. Moving meant leaving her only son, the happy times they had as a family, and everything that gave her a reason to live. But when she looked at Ryan, she saw only anger and annoyance on his face, and she realized he was doing what he thought was best for both of them. So with a heavy heart bearing the impending separation, Josephine gathered her belongings and prepared to leave that morning. Is it because of my heavy makeup, son? I even stopped going to the park every morning and evening after you asked me to. Evelyn broke Ryan's silence during their drive. Mom, it's not about your makeup or you going to the park, Ryan said. The thing is, you still have this illusion that you're some celebrity. Mom, you need to realize that you were never an actress. Nobody was even ready to cast you even for a small role. And now that you're older, you need to admit that you were an unsuccessful small-town model who never had a career in Hollywood. Ryan's words cut deep into Evelyn's already wounded heart, and she felt it sink. When Evelyn was heavily pregnant, her boyfriend betrayed her and left, leaving her heartbroken and alone. After her baby Ryan was born, she left him with his grandmother to pursue a career in Hollywood. Unfortunately, she never landed a role, despite years of trying as a small-town model and aspiring actress. As time passed, Ryan grew up without Evelyn's involvement. He graduated from college, got married, and settled down. Eventually, Evelyn gave up on her dreams and moved in with Ryan and his wife. Although she felt like a star inside, her son struggled with her attitude and tried to convince her to stop living in the past. When she wouldn't listen, he and his wife decided to send her away. One day, as Evelyn looked out the window, she wondered about her future. Where would she go? Would she be taken care of? She hoped it wasn't a nursing home. Ryan then pulled over outside an old barn and told her, "This is where you'll live from now on. It belongs to my friend's parents, and they said I could use it. So this is your new home, Mom. Everything you need is here." Evelyn felt a lump rise in her throat as she stepped down from the car, fighting back her tears. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's for the better, she thought, trying to stay positive. And my son found me in a good house. I'm sure he'll only do what is best for me. But as Evelyn stepped into the abandoned barn, her heart sank. The place was in shambles, with stained, moldy walls and a roof that looked like it could collapse at any moment. Ryan had furnished the old barn with second-hand furniture, and it lacked the modern comforts Evelyn was used to at his house. As she looked around, she felt overwhelmed by the thought of living alone in such a run-down place. She had hoped for a nicer home, perhaps with a garden, but instead, she found herself in a barely livable barn. "Do you like your new home, Mom? I even furnished it," Ryan asked, interrupting her thoughts. "I'm fine, darling. Thank you for making sure I'm comfortable," Evelyn replied, trying to hide her disappointment. Ryan, thinking she was happy, left her some money for groceries and promised to check on her often. As she watched him leave, Evelyn felt a wave of regret and guilt. She had left him with his grandmother to pursue her dreams, and now she was facing the consequences of her neglect. While sorting through her belongings, she found a box of old photographs. Looking at pictures of Ryan, she realized how alone he had been throughout his life. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Mama wanted us to have a beautiful life," she cried, noticing that there were no photos of them together. Her heart shattered as she recognized the loneliness in Ryan's eyes. She wished she could go back and be there for him, but she knew she couldn't change the past. Days turned into weeks, and despite her longing to tell him she would never leave again, Ryan never contacted her. The silence only deepened her pain. But one day, Evelyn's life turned around when she heard someone cough behind the wall. "Who is there?" she said when she realized it was not her son's voice. "Who are you? And what are you doing in my house?" Evelyn shrieked at seeing a teenage boy in a wheelchair at the doorstep. "Who are you?" "This is my barn. What are you doing here?" countered the boy, jolting Evelyn with an awful shock. "Your barn?" "Yes, this is my barn. Who are you? How did you get in here?" "But my son told me this was his friend's barn and he was permitted to use it." That evening became Evelyn's worst nightmare when she realized Ryan had left her alone in an abandoned barn in an unfamiliar town. Just then, a boy named Sully approached her with a smile and proposed a strange deal. With nowhere else to go, Evelyn agreed, still in shock that her son would abandon her. She hoped he would come back for her someday. However, Ryan didn't think about his mother until he ran into his old friend Jake. Excited to see him, Ryan learned that Jake's parents had died, and he expressed deep regret for not appreciating them while they were alive. As Jake spoke about his longing to apologize to his parents, Ryan felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He realized he had abandoned his mother, who had tried her best to improve their lives, even if she had made mistakes. Ryan understood that it wasn't fair to blame her for his childhood struggles. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Jake. What about that barn your parents owned? You told me I could use it." Ryan asked Jake. His hands wrapped up his face in shock when Jake told him that the barn had been demolished and the property had been sold to someone else several months ago. "What? You sold the barn?" "Yes, my parents had sold it to someone. I haven't met the new owners yet, and that barn is old and wrecked." "I'm glad it's sold," explained Jake. "Oh no, I wonder what happened to Mom." Ryan grew nervous about his mother, who lived in the barn, as he hadn't called her for several months and hurried to meet her. But when he got there, his heart pounded with fear after seeing a breathtaking mansion in the barn's place. Ryan couldn't believe his eyes. The shabby barn where he'd left his mom to live on her own just a year ago was now replaced with a grand estate. Moments later, the door creaked open, and tears gushed into Ryan's eyes. "Mom?" he cried in joy at seeing Evelyn alive and well on the other side of the door. "Come inside, darling. I was waiting for you and knew you would come someday," said Evelyn as she led Ryan inside. He was awestruck as he marched inside. The house was not just cozy, it was furnished with top-notch amenities that he only dreamed of all his life. Moreover, it didn't add up to Ryan when he saw his mother living in such a deluxe mansion. "I left Mom in a dirty old barn. How did it turn into such a beautiful estate? What happened here?" Ryan wondered. His mother's new life was a far cry from what she'd been living a year ago, and he couldn't understand how it happened. Before Ryan could make any sense of it, a teen boy entered the room in a wheelchair. It was Sully. "Evelyn, look. I managed to do it. I managed to do it," Sully shouted in joy, rising a little from his wheelchair. "It's all because of you. Thank you so much, Evelyn." Sully was the only son of a wealthy widower who had bought the property from Jake's late parents. After his dad died in a car crash a year ago, Sully was left alone. He had visited the barn to fulfill his father's dream of building a large estate and met Evelyn there. Seeing that she was also alone, he invited her to stay with him in exchange for her love and care. Evelyn explained, "We met last year, and I was heartbroken when you left. I realized I had neglected you when you were little." She shared how both she and Sully had lost their loved ones and found comfort in each other, helping her confront her past mistakes. Ryan was moved to tears, realizing his mother was stronger than he thought. He hugged her, apologized for abandoning her, and forgave her. A few days later, he offered her the keys to his new house, saying, "Mom, you can move back in with us. Amanda and I are expecting a baby, and we bought a bigger house for you." To his surprise, Evelyn declined the offer, though she appreciated his kindness. Ryan felt proud and hugged his mom, tears of joy and guilt streaming down his face.